Hello, and welcome to your typical cloud data streams trial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a streaming visualization from Kafka in 5 minutes.
All right, so let's start by creating our first data stream by clicking on Create New. Here we have several options where you can choose from. We can choose from typical cloud data streams, Apache Kafka, MQTT, or a fit simulation using CSV files. Let's pick Apache Kafka and copy paste our Kafka server hostname or IP address. Okay, so let's click Continue. Typical cloud data streams will automatically discover all the topics of a given bus and present you with an option to choose from that list. There is no need to know an exact topic. You can just browse what is actively being published. I will simply select the Kafka topic that I want to use. In this case would be the sensor data topic for this live query and click Continue. All right, let's move on to exploring the schema of the topic. Here we have two options. We can either choose a stream where we will store the event in full, or the latest will maintain the latest value as events arrive. Let's pick the stream since we want to know how the pressure has changed over time, and we want the visualization to demonstrate that. All right, the next step is to define the data retention policy, which means how long do we want to keep the data. It can be infinite, or it can have a limit of the data, so it can be manageable for the visualization. So let's go with store data based on time and define it for 30 minutes. Okay, so let's move on into security. This step allows us to configure a password for the data stream. In this case, we're going to simply continue. Okay, so now that we have everything, let's review our configuration. And everything looks good, so let's click on continue. All right, we have created a new data stream. It is super easy to do, as you just saw. So let's start with our live data table. And meanwhile, the data stream starts. Let's get Spotfire going so we can get on with our visualizations. Okay, so the data stream is live, so we can go in and copy paste the server URL into Spotfire. And in Spotfire, we have many native connectors like traditional databases, cloud databases, and typical cloud data streams, of course. Let's click on it and paste the URL that we just copied and connect to it. Okay, so we see that we connected successfully to typical cloud data streams, and we can now pull the Kafka data from there. So we simply are going to select the data table, add, and now we can see all the column names in the right panel. Let's start by creating our first visualization. In the left panel, let's select visualization with a line chart. All right, great. Spotfire created automatically a line chart with an x-axis being the timeline and the y-axis being the sum of the pressure. Okay, let's create an aggregation on the data so we can see the average pressure coming in from the sensors by clicking on the selector in the y-axis and changing sum to average. Cool. Now we are looking at the average pressure by time. So now let's do some analysis on this line chart. I want to identify what it is our pressure average and anything that is above a certain range above that average. So let's go to properties. Let's do a right click and select the lines and curves. Okay, so now we will create a horizontal line and we can add a standard deviation as well. All right. Just like that, now we can identify in which instances the pressure is one standard deviation above the average. So that's really nice. Okay, so let's create another visualization on the same information, and let's add another layer into insights. Now in here, Spotfire can also allow us to drill down into the information, but in this case, let's keep it simple and duplicate this visualization. Okay, so I will duplicating this visualization and I'm switching it to a scatter plot type of visualization. Okay, so one way of representing the data information is through colors, and Spotfire allows us to create rules around the colors and also in streaming data. So now let's select the pressure of our value and select a minimum average. Let's select the minimum, average, and maximum as our color rule. So this will create our maximum value in red. Okay, so let's make it easier to see and change it the black to a light gray so we can pick out the outliers easier. As we did before, I also want to add a horizontal line, but this time let's change the parameters. As we can see, Spotfire created two lines in the standard deviation, and I'm interested in the instances where the pressure is higher. So I will edit the positive standard deviation, and instead of one standard deviation, let's change it to a second standard deviation. As we see, the upper limit has been changed according to our formulas. Okay, so now you know how easy it is to bring Kafka data into Spotfire and start creating streaming dashboards without writing a single line of code. All right, so let's go and look at another example. So now that I have shown you the basics, you can go and create dashboards like this one, where we're measuring the sensors from different wells in a whole geographic area. We can apply rules and we can also apply data science to the same information while using historical data for context.